Good day. This is Curtis Shube, your host for Face the Culture. This is a Man by Design episode, and today we have Larry DeMarco. He's the executive manager of the International Council for Men and Boys. How are you today, Larry?
I'm great, Curtis. Thank you for inviting me to as a guest.
Yeah, and so it's been a bit since we've done a Man by Design episode, but I'm really excited to talk to you about what your organization does because one of the things that got me into podcasting and from the start is I really do have a passion for men who I think have a tendency to be overlooked in this modern day culture. So I'm really curious to see what you guys are doing. So can you tell me about your organization?
Sure, it's the International Council for Men and Boys. We're at menandboys.net on the internet, and we are raising awareness and finding solutions for 12 areas of male inequality. We're also on the eve of November. One of the ways that we do this is we have designated November as Men's Equality Month. This is the parallel to March's Women's History Month, which promotes female inequality. So this is kind of like first came Mother's Day, then came Father's Day. Well, we have Women's History Month, so now we have Men's Equality Month, which is November. There is a crisis facing men and boys, the boy crisis, which we delineate them in the 12 areas. They are all evidence and statistical based with supporting research. And you can find those 12 on our website. I'll get into that a little bit later. November is a month where we talk about that, raise awareness, propose solutions, and we issue press releases, but we are trying to change the narrative. In doing all of this, the idea is to change the narrative that when you think of gender equality, life is tough for both genders. It's not women. It's not only women, and it's not a zero-sum game. We are not trying to take from all those great efforts to fight problems women are facing. We're actually just showing that there's problems facing both genders, and we're just trying to change that narrative so people think of both genders when they think of inequality.
Yeah, so I guess the word, we're in this society where critical theory has taken hold, and it's not always related to race, but it's any person, any people group who have power dynamics, and so we're taught that like white males tend to be the least privileged or the most privileged, and so therefore all equality tends to when we talk about equality, it usually means that somehow the men are on the bad side of it. So it's interesting that you use that word. And so, well, how are men not equal? You listed 12 ways. So can you explain how men are not treated equally in society?
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm going to just list the 12 areas, and you can let me know which interest you, and I can go into detail more rather than just filibustering you. So the 12 areas, and they're in no particular order, are education, health, and the boy crisis, which focuses on maybe four sub-issues that boys are more subject to: child labor, hazardous work, child storage soldiers, extortion, and undernutrition. Fourth, false allegations. Men are subject to false allegations more than women. Men are more frequently victims of violence. They have a harder fight in parenting and custody court. That's 6. 7, men are more harshly judged for crimes, the same crime that both men and women commit. Men are also victims of partner abuse. The resources are all for women, the domestic violence shelters and whatnot. But statistically, they're both genders can be very tough in each other in relationships. So we're raising awareness there. Number 9, men are more frequently homeless. They face more workplace injury and death. They do not have any rights when it comes to reproduction rights. And men are disfavored in the media. 70%
Mm.
of media portrayals are negative. I know you heard the term toxic masculinity. So
Yes.
that is now being considered synonymous. When you think of men, you think of toxicity, and that's a narrative we're trying to change.
I have my own anecdote. I think that kind of it wasn't even within your 12, but so my background, you probably don't know, but I was a widower. So, but I found that,
I'm
you
sorry
know,
for your loss.
thank you. But I found through that process, there's all kinds of ministries for single women. There's not any ministries at all for single men, whether it be, my situation or the divorce situation. So like I went to church and they had a single women's ministry. And it's like, well, why don't we make it a single parent ministry? So that way, single dads can have involvement. And they said no. So I found that I went from ministry to ministry, and there just wasn't any resources for men, and so it really kind of opened my eyes to this kind of stuff you're talking about, to where everywhere you look, really, it seems like society caters to women, but not necessarily men.
So resources, that's a big issue here that really hits all items for boys or for young people, trafficking victims. People think women. People
Hmm.
think the sex trade, they think women. They don't realize that I think boys are slightly less. Admittedly, the statistics are close, but boys are right behind. But I'm not going to say 100%, but a vast majority, close to 100% of the resources are for girls. So when a
Yeah.
boy is a trafficking victim, there's not that support network that are there for females, domestic violence. Women are 70% more likely to initiate. I mean, if you think, does a guy haul off and hit a girl? No, usually what happens is she hits him and maybe he reacts and then gets locked up for reacting. So 70% of domestic violence is initiated for women, but police are trained that you lock up the man, and then if a couple is fighting and there's any type of escalation, who gets homeless? Who gets put out of the house? The man. Where does he go if he can't afford the lawyer and the support? He becomes homeless, which covers false allegations, partner abuse, and homelessness. So these are just some examples of those lack of resources for men that where all those resources are there for women. Things happen to both genders, but right now there's millions and billions supporting women across the globe and a paucity of resources, if any, as you mentioned, if any, for men.
It's funny you mentioning several of the other things that I've noticed in the last few months. Say, like another example, this plays out in TV and movies, but I think it happens in reality. A couple man and wife get into a fight. The man, why is the man always leaving the house? I mean, it's interesting. Like we make those assumptions.
It's a
Anytime there's a dispute, the man has to be the one who has the more significant consequence.
Sure. The reality is that both men and women are sharing more of the load in raising children. But that old-fashioned narrative is that the mother, the woman, is taking care of the children. And the other narrative is the disposability of men. Men are protectors. We draft our men into the armed forces. Men go to fight and get killed. Men are taught to be protectors, to protect your woman, to protect your children, so that if there's trouble there, the law just has that instinct. Well, the man's got to go because you can go protect yourself somewhere else. We're not going to have a woman uproot herself, even though things are more equal now. There's more sharing, but we haven't caught up in practice for what the reality is. And that's really the whole gist of what we're doing with the International Council for Men and Boys.
So you're saying that in today's society, we might have equality for positive things, but not necessarily for the negative things.
We're
So
correcting the laws that said women wouldn't make as much for the same work. We've corrected that. We have laws addressing um, a lot of protection. Here, perfect example: the Violence Against Women's Act. Wait a minute. What about Interpartner Violence Act? Why are we only protecting women when it's something that happens to both? That's an example of what I'm saying. How the corrective measures to protect problems in society are to protect women, even though we're a dual sex society,
hmm.
both of whom have problems.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, once this kind of like triggered in my mind, you seem to, at least for me, I notice it everywhere now. And and so how do we I think like the common refrain from a feminist would be like, "Oh, well, poor men." You're like, I don't know that just pointing it out is enough really for them to see that changes need to be made for men too. So what do we do? Like how do we reach enough people to make a change here?
Curtis, thank you for that point. When I write a press release, I post it in a political discussion group, which I'm proud to say is pretty bipartisan. But if I post something about male inequality, the responses that I get from women, you know what? Not just women. I actually get it from men and women, but men will be quicker to know what I'm talking about, just like you did. But if I post something that suggests gender equality for men, the response is, oh, so what is this like? White lives matter? Or, oh, you poor, privileged men. The brushback is such that I cannot post this type of discussion thing in a group because the group explodes with outrage. So that's my answer to your first question. Is it enough to raise awareness? No, we have a long way to go because of how we've been conditioned over decades that it's only a female issue. And I do want to recognize that the journey that women did have. And this is the first thing I say when I get that pushback in a discussion group. Yes, women across the world are subject to awful abuse, like genital mutilation, mandatory hijabs, where the punishment could be death if you take off your hijab. But women can be forced into marriages, and in some countries, they're not even allowed to be educated. And women still feel that they have that fight. So this is where we get to the point where, yes, it is a battle for both genders. We're not taking away from that. We recognize that that's there. But there's dozens of billion-dollar funding groups that are addressing that. And the narrative is that we got that. We know it's there, but there's not. So yes, we do have to raise awareness, and it's not enough just to post it once and say it. We have to change a narrative, and it's going to take a long time for people to get deconditioned that it's only a woman issue. And I'm sure we don't have enough time to go through all of the statistics and research supporting these 12 areas, but this is research from global organizations that are testing the problems of both men and women, and men are falling behind in things like education, the job market. They die more than 5 years sooner. They have more mental health problems with things like suicide, and in family court, a man can get canceled by accusation by an ex-wife saying he hit me, he hit our kids, or whatever. He loses everything when things like that happen. So again, we have statistics supporting all of what we're talking about, the unjust criminal system, and men are more frequently homeless and victims. As to repeat, yes, we do have a long way to go, and it's not just saying it's going to happen or make it happen.
You make a good point about, you know, I don't think many men would deny that there has been injustice toward women now and in the past. I mean, I know it's all over the place, but I think I guess maybe what's happened is, in their fight to gain equality, there's just been this effort to knock men off their pedestal to get there. And so now that we've arrived at some level of, I mean, I know it's not completely equal, but it's more equal than it ever has been. But now that we've arrived there and they have that power and that footing, they still have that mentality that, oh, like we got to knock men off their pedestal. And I think kind of, I guess, piggybacking off what you're saying, but men have been told we suck for so long that, like we've gotten to the point where men are giving up, like so that I think, if you're going to go to college and you're not going to have anything at the other end, like why bother? So we've been told we're dumb and all these things for so long. I think people buy into that narrative, and then it's like a learned helplessness situation.
It's a natural result when you keep telling boys in school, boys are made to stand up and apologize to their girl classmates for it being part of a gender that has oppressed the other gender. There is a newspaper headline in Australia that's right on our website, item number 12, media bias, showing a picture of a boy, and the headline says, "How do we stop this kid from becoming a monster?" Starting to address male toxic masculinity. So the natural effect, you keep telling this gender that they're no good. You have more female teachers that understand the female students, praise the female students, write a curriculum for something that teacher understands as a woman, and then punishes the boys who are active, that are more energetic, that want to use their hands, and not the things that are in the curriculum. So they start naturally falling behind, getting depressed, dropping out of school, not
Mm.
going as far, not getting high paying jobs. And so you have now women are 3 out of 5 students in college now. So that one woman, the 1 out of 5, who's she going to marry? Does she want to marry a janitor, a a food server at McDonald's? If she's college educated, becomes white collar, and maybe an executive. So that group of males who then become discouraged, become the incels, become the suicide victims, become the drug addicts, the video game addicts, or become angry, or God forbid, the school shooters. Most mass shooters are dad deprived, which I actually just went into a different topic there. But in family court, when you move the father out of the household, you have these boys that then get depressed and have all the problems that I just mentioned.
Yeah, it's kind of a snowball effect. You know, one male struggles, and then that passes on to the next male within that family line, and yeah, so
And
it's a cycle that needs to be broken.
absolutely. And do we have solutions to face this? What we're promoting is greater father family involvement, fatherhood councils to give men the tools to job training. We're trying to promote more trade schools that are more geared toward maleness, or boys who want to use their hands, who want to use tools in their vocation rather than through the traditional education. And around this bias, this is the whole concept, and the long journey that we have to try and change people's thinking. This is the whole concept behind what we're raising in November, November being Male Equality Month, Men's Equality Month. Well, we're promoting that hashtag Men's Equality Month and hashtag gender equality for men for every press release, for every video, and for every message that we're putting out to raise awareness. And we invite your listeners to also share that with us, the men and women who understand what's going on. And I do want to point out that women are big supporters of what we're doing. This is not a zero-sum game. We're not trying to get back ahead of women. We want to raise society so that women have more educated men to marry, so that we have a better economy, a better workforce. But there's a movement, she for he. Just like there was he for she to get female equality, well, there's a lot of women, a lot of women lawmakers that are issuing statements of support for exactly what we're doing. So it has momentum. It has both sexes supporting it. And just remember, November is Men's Equality Month.
Well, and I think that, yeah, you're right. Women, I feel like I hear this a lot on like YouTube videos, or like, this kind of, how people like commentate on society and on social media. But I hear the, where have men gone kind of comment from women a lot. So I think like they intrinsically desire the maleness in society, even though maybe they've been conditioned
That's right.
to push it out.
That's right. They're still attracted to the masculine male. The whole idea is there can be negative effects of both genders. When there can be some negative effects of masculinity, just like there's negative effects of female or femininity. But the thing is, masculine traits are good. We're competitive. We're leaders. We're strength, competition, collaboration. All these things are good for economy, a business, society. So we need these masculine skills that the flip side, or if you get too much testosterone, or if something becomes negative, then yeah, you can point that out, but let's not throw out all the good qualities of being male.
Yeah, I might get in trouble here because by generalizing, but typically men are logical thinkers and typically women are emotional thinkers, but you need both. They balance each other out. Like if without one, you go too far the other direction. Too much logical brain, you lose empathy, and too much empathy, you lose logic.
Absolutely. It is a balance. What we want is to be fully human. We want to have enough positive traits from both genders, and we want to celebrate our good women and our good men, our feminine women and our masculine men. And we don't want men to completely push out their emotional side. We want our men to love their wives, to hug their sons, and to empathize, which, empathy being perhaps a more feminine trait, but just like women had to develop some masculine traits to enter the workforce, we want men to also stay with their wives, love their families, and be connected to the emotions of the family and not be maybe that old-fashioned tradition, austere patriarch who something, I guess, like the Godfather figure, or just it's about embracing all your human qualities.
So with obviously, I know we've established that the first step really is creating a narrative so people can understand the issues. But are you guys doing anything else? I mean, are you lobbying, or like are we proposing laws, or like what are the other efforts outside of a narrative?
Sure, that's a great question. So we are proposing laws. We are proposing establishing fatherhood councils, commissions for men and boys, and uh, in each item of male inequality, if you go to our website, menandboys.net, you will see the 12, and they all have clickable links. For each one, we have detailed solutions that are addressing these. And like for instance, for homelessness, most shelters are dedicated to women because domestic violence shelters will take any woman. You don't have to be a victim of domestic violence. It's trying to stop female homelessness. And there's no domestic, again, I don't want to overstate. I don't want to say none. There's only a handful that you can count on 5 fingers of domestic violence shelters for men. But yet 76% of men constitute the homeless population. So that is a concrete solution. Fund more homelessness shelters for men. Now, society fights them more, and they don't fight the homeless shelters for women because of this toxic masculine narrative, man. They don't want homeless men in their neighborhood. But homeless women, that's okay. And that's where that narrative comes in. But another one, Violence Against Women Act.
Hmm.
We have to change that law, make it neutral, and
Yeah.
enforce false. Men are more victims of false allegations. Well, there are laws to enforce penalties against false allegations. So part of those solutions, yes, we have to publicize, we write lawmakers, we write the media to try and change that narrative for these specific solutions, and you can find them at menandboys.net. Click through your particular area of interest, and you'll see our detailed solutions.
I'm curious. I'm a lawyer. I think based on your shirt, you may be one as well.
I am as well. Yes. Good,
So
Curtis. Absolutely.
that triggers my mind. So, Against Women Act. Why are we not litigating against that? It seems like that might violate equal protection. I never thought of that until just
That's right.
now.
That's right. It does. Now it's written in name, and but just the practice, how police are trained is so gender biased, and the language that they give the accused assumes guilt. The whole idea behind trauma informed means if you go speak to a woman, assume a trauma has occurred. That means he's already guilty.
Hmm.
So these are ways in the law that we can um, correct or make our laws more evenly applied and treat every case based upon its facts so that we catch up with the changes in society that have occurred over the decades.
Are there any law centers doing this type of work?
Are there any
Like legal organizations?
doing the type of work that we're requesting? Well, not changing, like the ACL, most of those groups are still pursuing female equality, which is the whole reason why we're here. So to answer your question, I guess I'm not aware. There are other nonprofits like us that have male messaging that are trying to promote things like greater father family involvement or uh, men and boys commissions. So they do exist. In terms of law, I'm not aware of any, men's law center like there are women's law center,
Hmm.
the women's place, or things like that. Um, so no, I guess is not that I'm aware of is the way I should answer that.
It's so interesting because you everywhere you look, there's a deficiency that falls against men in that way. Like even down to how to fight it. It's just it's really everywhere you look, and it you just don't hear about that from much of anyone. It's so interesting to me.
And so the people who are scrutinizing this and say, oh, you poor men, the women who have been victimized, first of all, I want to acknowledge you that yes, both genders do get victimized, and it's awful when it happens to any gender. But what we are talking about is evidence and research and science based. Statistically, women are more there is an overcorrection in helping women. We have swung the other way. And I do think this is a winnable fight. I'm an optimist. And I do think once awareness is raised, we'll get there. We'll get that balanced society that we really, really want. But with a correction, with these generations and centuries and decades of female inequality that we have to recognize that we did have, with any correction, there is a natural overcorrection. And really what we're just trying to get it back is to center.
Yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth.
All right. I
No,
didn't mean to steal your thunder. I've been talking
that's
about this for a long time.
no, that's great. This is something I'm just really passionate about too. So it's interesting you're thinking of the same exact words even.
Well, I have to thank you and acknowledge you for bringing me on the show to allow me to discuss these critically important issues, and it's appreciated.
Yeah, so we are toward the end of our half hour, but I want to make sure our audience can find you. So where would they do that? And also, I guess while you're wrapping it up, can you tell us what our audience can be doing proactively?
First thing, we are late October, so please um, participate with us in Men's Equality Month. Share a post, raise awareness. We have a lot of resources, press releases that we have written that document with very detailed, they're not opinion pieces, they're very detailed, specific, fact-based messages. Look at our press page and share them. Share them with a hashtag. Share them on your social media with a hashtag Gender Equality for Men and Men's Equality Month to help raise awareness of one of those items of male disadvantage. So during that month, November 19th is International Men's Day. We'll have a reception in New York, and we'll be Zooming that. And you can get an invitation by signing up on menandboys.net. Sign up, put your email in and your country, which I'm sure most of your listeners, I imagine, are in the United States. But then you will get an invitation. You will get notifications of all our press releases. So there's your cause of action. Participate in Men's Equality Month. Sign up and join the wave at menandboys.net with a pop-up, the blue wave. Join that blue wave with all men and women who are raising awareness for men and boys.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on our program to talk about this. I hope our audience finds it interesting and eye-opening, and maybe we can start changing this narrative.
Yes, thank you, Curtis. Appreciate the invite.
And to our audience, have a great day.